Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for that introduction, Simon. I can confirm to you that I still have the habit of being in the wrong place at the wrong time or say the wrong things at the wrong time. So, yes, couldn't stop embarrassing my wife and kids. Yeah. So, let me start with the introductions of the esteemed panel. I'll let them introduce themselves, and then we can get to business.
Hi, everyone. I just spoke. My name is Shreya Jwali. I'm an Associate Director of Digital Strategy at Bayer Pharmaceuticals.
Ryan Dunkerley. I lead the Omnichannel team for the care division of KAC Pharmaceuticals.
Heidi Katz. I'm a pharmacist by training. I just completed a contract at Shionogi, so I don't have a job. I'm looking for one.
Right there with you, sister. Larissa Wozniak, most recently with Immunovant and previously with other emerging biotech companies as well as Pfizer and GSK prior to that. Pleasure to be here with you all.
All right. So I think the topic here is about customer experience and, the various facets of how this has been built and what's the role of AI and other factors. We've had some interesting conversations already. So what we thought about was to look at two of the biggest stakeholders on this space and then talk about how the relationship and the ecosystem is evolving, right? So today's discussion is going to be around, what kind of opinions we can drive from the panel around two of the biggest stakeholders in this ecosystem of creating the customer experience, right? So one is, of course, going to be the pharma. Then it could be small, big, biotech. And then it's the agencies, right? So when I say agencies, it's just not one kind of agency. It's every kind of agency we're talking about, right? So we wanted to see how things are evolving in the current times, in the advent of AI. And then there is an unprecedented amount of consolidation going on in pharma as we speak. It's either things getting consolidated, teams are let go, offshore centers being built. You might be familiar with the terminology of GCC or Global Capability Center. So that's how we've looked at the whole topic today, right? So I'll throw the first question at Ryan. So the traditional agency model, do you still think it's alive, or is it obsolete in an AI-driven world where it is also powered by GCCs, especially for the large pharma? Because almost all of the big pharma has a huge offshoring in any of the other countries, right? So I think if you know this space, almost all of the top 10 pharma has some sort of capabilities built around that. So what happens to the traditional agency model, do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, thanks. And I jumped right on top of this topic when we were circling up for prep, because this has been very much the center of what we've been doing at KAC and my group over the last year, which is really transitioning that relationship with our agency from this staff augmentation model to this strategic partnership. I think everybody in here would say that gone are the days that we're looking for our agency to come in and make, we're going to score them by how many emails they're going to make or how cost effective the new sales detail is going to be for us. And so really the conversation we've been having with our agency and our other third-party vendors is leaning into this strategic kind of partnership, right? So what can they bring to the table that propels us forward, that unlocks new opportunities for us, that really changes the way that we approach engaging with our customer or the way that we're handling our business, not just augmenting our ability to create content.
Amazing. So what you're trying to say is that you as a as a sponsor or a pharma, you're driving that change, and you are driving the agency model to move in a direction which fits your business, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So any other takes on that, Sri or anybody else?
I can chime in on that from an emerging biotech, smaller, pre-commercial organization type standpoint. There are still facets of the original agency model that are still somewhat relevant for smaller organizations in particular, because they don't have all the people or the capabilities in place to actually deliver against their objectives. What it may take, though, is a bit of evolution in how some of those particular activities are accomplished. I've just recently, with some of the later companies that I had worked with, there was a heavy emphasis placed on evidence generation, and our agencies were actually able to help supplement our efforts because we didn't necessarily have access to all of the data. And then they were able to use that data to help build some of the action plans in partnership with us, to Ryan's point, that we needed to ultimately execute against for our market development initiatives. So there's still value, but there may be a greater emphasis across the board, I'd say, on the evidence generation and helping to bolster that for both companies, large and small.
Okay, that's a great example of how, again, a smaller pharma could actually drive that collaboration, and then it could be a good topic offline for some of the other small pharma folks to perhaps have a chat with Larissa if you're interested to know more about how that can be driven, right? So any other takes on that?
I can chime in. So I think both are interesting perspectives. I'll add one more different thought, is about resourcing. So we obviously have talent, and so there are human resources that are always needed at the table, right? Although we'll say, hey, AI agents will become our coworkers one day, you still need a human resource that's going to be running the AI. So I think that's something that's not talked about a lot, is that, hey, now, does that dynamic shift? Absolutely, but I don't think you'll ever get rid of the human resource component, and that's how large organizations, like I work at Bayer right now, and they have, 80,000 employees globally. Now, will AI, I think there's two ways to think about it. Is AI just saying, hey, we're going to cut headcount? That's one way of thinking about it. Or is it going to maximize the performance of the 80,000 employees you have? That's, I think, where we should all be thinking towards, and I think that's where at least I've seen as well, maximizing the performance and output of the human resources we do have.
Amazing. More from less.
So for me, I've worked both on the agency side and the manufacturer side, right? So I kind of have a different viewpoint than other people do. And it's interesting to me because I don't see this as getting rid of an agency. I see this as giving an innovation hub an opportunity to be more fluid, to give more depth to ideas, and to do it in a way that they might not have done previously. So I think it's an addition that's just going to help. I don't think it's going to replace.
Okay, that's a great response, great take. So that brings us to the next question, which was about whether AI can eventually replace. We just saw AI is able to handle a large treatment process for someone, right? So could eventually AI replace creativity in pharma marketing or the entire ecosystem? Is it something that you kind of foresee?
I don't think it's ever going to replace human creativity, but I think it's going to redefine it, right? It's going to redefine how we use it and what we do. I feel like John should come back up here and sit in my lap.
Correct.
Because he said the antithesis to everything I could say on the business side, right?
Right.
Everything he said, there's a counter side to that.
Correct.
And it's all true. Right?
Both sides are true, yes.
Because AI doesn't necessarily have the feelings and the empathy, but it connects people with science and understanding and helping them to trust it. Sometimes, most of the time. And so for me, that makes a lot of sense. It gives an opportunity to be more fluid in the process. I've worked at agencies where we've done this disruptive process and we took it every step of the way. We could have saved a lot of time and had a lot more of, I would say, more interesting and innovative ideas to build on what we had come up with. AI is never going to have empathy. It's not
Right.
going to have feelings, right? It's just bringing that human feeling along with what AI can give us in terms of information and connecting the dots.
All right. So I think a lot of us touched base on what the thought could be on this particular question. So that brings us to the next aspect of where this can potentially go. That is, when we talk about customer experience, who should actually own it? Is it going to be the pharma, or is it going to be the agency, or some of the AI engines, or the models that we're talking about? Who's going to be who should really ideally own it, right? So for the betterment of everything, who should ideally own it?
Yeah, it's a good question. Who should own the customer experience? The customer, right? It's their experience. So are we shaping it? Are we informing it? Are we trying to put our best thought forward? Sure. But the reality is they're going to have their unique experience, right? Some are going to go zag and some are going to go zig, right? So who's going to own it? It's the customer. But that's where I think now we have to have more, and this word has been thrown around for decades, but now it's even more at our doorstep, which is patient centricity. We have to really shape everything we do around what is the customer wanting to experience, and then we mold it to that. So I think, the answer, my opinion, is the pharma company, the manufacturer that's putting out the information,
Right.
will have to cater that experience to that customer. That's my take.
Any examples of how this could be done, Ryan? How a pharma could own the customer experience?
Yeah, well, I mean, so just a quick poll. I'm just curious where everybody is. How many people are like building customer journey maps right now? Yeah? And of the people who are building customer journey maps, how many people are like refining those like yearly, just as much as you're doing your brand plans? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. So so that, this idea that we are applying that iterative process,
right,
and that the other buzzword we use a lot, right? Co-creation process.
Absolutely.
Into how we're addressing this, I think, is what brings that allows the customer to own their experience as they're moving through our environment.
Right. So any thoughts on how you can encourage that collaboration of building the customer experience, and if, let's say, the pharma is going to own it,
Yeah.
how can that work?
So if I go back to the model of I've worked on both sides of the business, right?
Right.
In my mind, the agency and the pharma company, it's a partnership. There's no one or the other.
Of course.
It's all about partnering and bringing all of those resources together. So like you were saying, right? It's about telling a brand story and how you tell that story and how you refine it. But it's also about putting the feeling into it and the emotion into it. And that's only something that humans can do together.
I actually wanted to take a quick step back to a use case example, if I can.
Love that.
So since we'd been talking about customer experience and also patient journeys, and John had talked about his own specific patient journey, recently at my previous company, we had been pitching agencies for business as part of the launch readiness process. And there were a few agencies that had very, very strong AI capabilities. And what was really wonderful about what they shared with us was they showed us, depicted a patient journey that could be updated in real time. And what that meant for us, ultimately, based on the data lakes that they had access to, was that we could reprioritize our efforts to focus on the pain points that, to Shree's point, matter the most to patients, that need to get resolved as quickly as possible so that they can hopefully get access to their treatments. So that became a very important factor in our consideration set as we were thinking about which agencies do we potentially want to partner with, those who can bring to a smaller company the capability to actually share in real time what that journey looks like, what the pain points are, and help us reprioritize, because we all know that sometimes we will invest in something and it becomes a fail fast and get out of there fast situation, and then you need to move on to the next thing. Strategies need to be nimble, decisions need to be nimble. You need to kind of go with the flow of what's most critical at that point in time. So having those capabilities becomes really, really important to us, whether they're built in-house or whether it's an external agency that's providing that capability to the company.
Awesome. So data and intelligence are two key words into when you're tailoring the right customer experience, which is successful, especially in a smaller setup, right? Yes. Okay. So then again, that brings us to the next question, then, which is all about compliance, what you can do versus what you cannot do, what kind of a framework that is available, and then is it encouraging you or is it stifling you, and what could we potentially do about it? Yeah. Who wants to go first? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I live in Morgantown, West Virginia, and there's no easy way to get anywhere from there. So I drive everywhere, and so I definitely listen to a whole bunch of podcasts on AI on my way here, and and everybody's dooming about generalize all the terrible things that can happen with generalized superintelligence in the future. And I was thinking yeah, but we're not quite there yet, And that's something that I think is important for us, especially us in the room as we're working right now. There's a lot of promise in AI, and it is moving very, very fast. That is very true. But we're not at a place where we have generalized superintelligence yet. We're still getting our models not to hallucinate and trying to understand what they're doing. And that's an excellent place to be in on this subject right here, right? Because we are in a place where we are having to define these rules. And so particularly when it comes to regulatory and compliance, something that I've found very successful is working with our regulatory and compliance partners right now to define what these tools are right now for for us in this moment, right?
Before even you get into a journey, I would.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
so you want to get to them in a table at the beginning of the journey.
Exactly.
Then build it together with them.
Yeah, exactly. And building those together. I mean, look, we're working with guidance from the FDA that's the most relevant is 10 years old at this point in time. I mean, we're not going to get guidance on AI, and I'll be talking about more of that tomorrow. Right. But so what that means is it's an opportunity for us to lean into the relationships that we already have with compliance and regulatory and start defining what that looks like for us now. And that might be a little bit scary, but it's that kind of partnership early on I've found leads to a lot of success, and I think within the world of leveraging AI tools, that's going to repeat itself as well.
I agree with Ryan 100%, 1,000% actually. I have found that making that connection and working with our partners, right, gives us the ability to talk things through. We bring concepts early on, we walk through them, and if you're lucky enough, which I was in my previous company, they will actually help you to make it so that it is compliant and it does pass regulatory, right? Because they're engrossed in the idea and the concept and the creativity. So you just have to work with them. And, I know some places are more strict and stringent than others, but I think it's just a process. You agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll add one more point. I think you don't even need me on this panel.
Perhaps your challenges are going to be different from what Ryan is facing because of the size of the organization, yeah?
Sure. But I'll add one more point to add on. So there's a term, and I'm actually coming to terms with this now. It's called AI hallucinations. I don't know if anyone has heard of this. So I was playing with this last week, actually, and I asked for one of our products that we sell at Bayer, I said, what are the approved indications? And the AI didn't actually get all of the approved indications, and it just said, hey, we're indicated for 2 out of the 3 we're actually approved for. So I said, okay, not really a hallucination, you're kind of maybe outdated. Then I put in another product, a different side of the portfolio, And it not only said what we're approved for, but it also said we're approved for something that's actually still going through clinical trials, and that's going to be 2028. Now, that'd be great. If I was approved for that indication today, we'd be sitting in a different position. But there's something really called AI hallucinations, where the AI actually can make up things, and we have to be very cognizant of that. And it would actually, I'll take it a step further, it would actually cite fake references. This has happened to me many times, and y'all should be wary of this. It'll make up Deloitte studies that are so perfect for what you're looking for, and it'll cite it, 2024 Deloitte study based on blah, blah, blah. And you're like, let me Google that. Does that even exist? And it doesn't. So there is something really called AI hallucinations. But now coming to the question about the compliance and regulatory, I think we have our internal, but then externally it goes to the FDA, right? Everything gets 2253. And so I think if you ask me, their content framework of how we submit things are piece related, right? Everything is pieces. So is it approved messaging? What do they look at? Is it approved on-label messaging? That's really at the heart of it. And so I don't think that the input matters. Did it come from a human? Did it come from an AI? As long as really what is the compliance framework? Is this approved on-label messaging? And so that's where we have to actually be more careful. Is this an AI hallucination that we're submitting, or is it something that's actually on-label?
Yeah. So I think that the framework is critical, and depending on the size and the nature of the organization, that's what I get to hear from here, right? So then again, are we prepared? So one of the other common things that pharma does is when you're talking about GCCs and content and AI, there is always a global structure, and then outside of US, you have a lot of local execution, where there is a lot of nuances which comes in, right? So language, culture. So when we talk about localization, how do we say that how well we are prepared, especially in these times of do more with less, do faster, AI, lack of a lot of very clear, well laid out guidelines. So how do we handle the localization pressure? So Larissa, you want to start?
Sure. So I spent a number of years working on global teams as an asset lead, and there's something to Vimal's point about having to follow local regulation, the nuances, understanding those nuances, and then integrating those into the content that's produced. But that said, I've seen AI do some really incredible things. Somebody had brought up concepting earlier. That's a topic that's going to be discussed later. You can integrate some of those guidelines into the development of concepts for campaigns, and AI can spit out 20 different iterations. But the question is, can they be disruptive concepts? So that goes back to something that Heidi mentioned earlier. It's about the depth of and how enriched of a concept you might be able to come up with, or an idea that you might be able to come up with. So you can create iterations, you can create spin-offs maybe with AI, but that human creativity, that's the genesis of these disruptive ideas, such as OpenAI in and of itself, that is something that comes from up here.
Mm-hmm. All right. So cross-border, global, any takes?
Yeah, I guess I'll pull the Debbie Downer straw at this one. Like, okay? So I don't know if you bring this up in Philadelphia, but is everybody familiar with the Pittsburgh accent? Like, are you guys, everybody clean with this, right? So my family is from Pittsburgh originally, and there's a very unique Pittsburgh accent.
Show us.
No.
I have the Boston accent, people.
This particular topic makes me think about this, right? Because the Pittsburgh accent is in severe decline, right? So there's fewer people who have that accent, and it's going downhill very fast. And as a matter of fact, regional accents in the United States have been significantly on decline since like the invention of radio. And as we create more technology that is universally shared, we start reinforcing those kinds of we start reinforcing these more homogenized experiences, right? And so I think this question really does pull up a really interesting thing for us to be cognizant of as we start using these models, right? Like the systems, these AI systems that we're using, aren't necessarily programmed to be thoughtful about the cultural heritage that we want to try to preserve over periods of time, right? These very specifically human things that are important to us. And there are side effects to using technology that we might not be aware of, like how radio and TV normalized American accents to the Midwest, right, 100 years ago. And when you're using a machine that responds to you and is designed to predict how you're thinking and how you're typing, it has the opportunity to maybe not just change the way that you type, or maybe the way that you think. And so I think that this is a very important question for us to consider. I don't really have a good answer for you, so that's why I said
Especially when you're talking about global, local.
yes, absolutely.
U.S. and ex-U.S.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
within U.S. you have
I think this is really important, right? Because you mentioned culture. Culture is a big thing. I work globally as well, and I just remember we were backstage and somebody said something about a fanny pack, and all the guys started laughing because fanny means something not nice in the UK, right?
Yeah.
And how would I know that? I would never know that. So you have to really take into consideration what's happening in the countries that you're working in, right? And what they consider appropriate, what they consider inappropriate, because we would never, ever, ever want to be inappropriate with them. It's not fair. It's not nice. It's disrespectful.
All right, fantastic. I think that's all we had time for. And any questions from the audience? You have a minute?
A couple of questions here.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, everyone. So I'm just going to make my way over. I'm always on the wrong side of the room.
Hi, thank you so much. As you guys were talking, it kind of occurred to me that maybe AI can add value immediately with some low-hanging fruit around costs. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
are we still going to pay agencies to do banners and emails in 2026?
No. I'm doing brand planning right now, and I went through and just redlined out everything that was like email, sales aid, or something like that, and I'm readjusting my ask for my agencies for them to say messages, right?
Okay.
Like, that's what I want from them. I can use technology to make a thing, but I need an agency to be thoughtful about my brand to make messages for me.
Exactly, because I think that's something that a lot of companies aspire to. I just haven't seen any practical examples yet of people doing it.
So I'll
guys
add
like-
one more thing, if I could.
sure, yeah.
So I agree with Ryan. Like, we're also redlining what we could, but I think it still comes down to the human resource component, right? Where is it in the best interest of my time to be making an email, or should I be thinking holistically, right? Someone will have to use the AI. Could I hire the agency to do it, or should I have someone on my team do it? So I still want to say, hey, AI is not going to just fix all our problems. We still need someone to do the work, and I think that. So I don't want to discount that, right? So yeah, then the question is, since you mentioned cost, is it cheaper for me to have a full-time employee use the AI to make the email, or is it cheaper for me to have the agency use whatever tools they want to get me the email? And that's where I think the cost. But you can't get rid of the human resource at the end of the day.
Coming from the agency
That's my
side, I can tell you something. Guys like Ryan or Sri or some of these smart folks, they come and tell us what kind of AI you're using. Because I don't want to be creating banners in the traditional way. I want this in 24 hours or less. I want to pay 1/3 of the cost because it's possible. They actually go the extra mile of coming and showing it to us and saying, why are you not doing it? So that's the kind of collaboration we love. We want to do it, but then if it's coming from there, it's much more easier. Yeah, it's happening. Yes.
Well, the other piece of this, right, is something that you said. It's about the prompts. Like, what are you putting in to get out what you want in messaging, right? Because if you're not putting in the right prompts and you haven't solidified what those should be, or you haven't played around with it, you don't know, you're going to get entirely different messaging one way if you used one word versus if you used another word.
Right. Okay, I think do we have time for any other questions, Simon, or?
For the panel before we move on to our next session,
All right.
I think we covered it. No, all right. Let's give our panel, esteemed panel, a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.